Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 12th of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning, firstly, by Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Yeah, good, Derek. Good to be here, as ever.
And Stevie Clifford for the second day in a row. How's it going, Stevie? We're the hoodie lads today, it looks like.
It's a bit cold outside, Derek, so went for a bigger jumper on the kid drop-off and dog walk. So, just try to stay warm, mate. I even put the heating on for half an hour this morning, so
Oof.
It's a bit cold.
Yeah, we're well into winter now, although it's still classed as autumn, is it? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, let's crack on with the show. Before we talk all things Rangers, folks, big shout out to our podcast sponsors. The morning briefing brought to you by MPH Group, Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. Every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway as well. You could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. So there you go, folks. The all-important contact details and social media links are in the description box down below. So do go check them out if that is something you are thinking of. Right, gentlemen, of course, we're on another day on the terms of the Rangers managerial search. No manager has been announced as yet. By all accounts, it looks like Kevin Muscat and Philip Clement are the front runners to take over from Michael Beale. There was news that emerged yesterday, Johnny, with a piece on the website, reports of a boardroom split over who is best suited to take over from Michael Beale, but suggestions there is a disagreement between key Ibrox decision makers as to who will take the role have been strenuously denied by sources who point out that talks remain live. It's understood that the entire working week has been blocked off by the C-suite management to ensure the process is as meticulous as possible and that each candidate is given a chance to state their credentials fully. Insiders say it's impossible for there to be a disagreement when the process led by James Bisgrove and John Bennett remains incomplete and findings have yet to be presented to the wider board. So, Johnny, with that piece on the website yesterday. Joshua, we're going to discuss both managers today, their playing styles, and who would be best suited to the club at this point in time. You wrote a piece on the website, interesting piece on Kevin Muscat. You spoke to ex-teammates, and a guy who worked with him as an assistant to him at Melbourne Victory. You've analysed the two of them. What can Rangers fans expect if either of them pitch up? And is there a preferred candidate for you at this point in time?
I think firstly, just you'd imagine that there's going to be, I'd hope there's some level of disagreement, not split, but I hope there's some level of disagreement throughout the week because it's two good candidates, and there should be different opinions and that those type of discussions coming up. As you say, I think the whole week has been blocked out for interviews, but yeah, I think disagreement in this process is probably necessary because it's a big decision to get right, isn't it? And I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate internally about who the right man is. Yeah, a lot of good content on the website at the moment. Chris has got a really interesting piece today, which will be in the description of the comments, that speaks to people who have appointed, off the record, who have appointed a Rangers manager before. Takes us, I guess, behind the curtain a little bit of what that process is like, just how stressful it is. Comparing it to maybe decisions that board members will make in their own business when they're appointing senior leadership figures, just how important a manager is at any football club, but especially a club like Rangers. So that's really interesting. And then hopefully what's interesting as well is the pieces on Buffel and Muscat. I know we spoke about Buffel at the start, Clement with Buffel. I know we spoke about that at the start of the week. Muscat, it's been interesting to watch more of their football, either manager, and find out more about their style. And I know we're going to get today into a little bit about who would maybe be best suited in the current circumstances. But I guess just to focus on that piece first, Derek, what stood out to me was perhaps more adaptable than we give him credit for. There's a lot of rhetoric that he's only picked up from where Postecoglou's left, and in terms of the clubs he's went to, that's true. I think if you speak to people around it and speak to people with knowledge of the situation, then everyone has mentors in life, I guess, and career-wise, and football that's no different. Postecoglou, there's no doubt that he's very much that for Muscat. That Muscat's taken a lot from him. He played under him. He was his assistant manager, and there's lots of parallels between their football, but he's also, I guess, had achievements really in his own right, done a good job in Japan in what is not easy circumstances, because Marinos don't have one of the biggest budgets in the league. Pardon me. And it's been interesting to, I guess, find out a little bit more about how adaptable is he, what is his style of play. One of the people I spoke to for that piece was actually his assistant manager at Marinos last season, so he's got real inside knowledge of the tactical detail, what Muscat's like as a manager. Apparently never gets angry, which I guess you guys would have seen him play more than me, but I think that's quite contrasting to his playing career. And yeah, goes into detail about the training processes that he does to make his teams play like they do. And I think all that's really interesting as well, Derek, because if the Rangers manager, if they're one of the two is appointed by the end of this week, they'll have next week to work with the team, which is a bit of an added bonus. It's not a pre-season. You're probably not working with the whole club. You'll have the squad. You've got people coming back from internationals. You'll have people injured. So whoever comes in out of these two managers, they're going to have to work under a specific set of circumstances. So hopefully either of these perspectives, give people a bit more detail about one of the managers that could be coming in. We're going to have more detail, I guess, touching on this today on their actual style of play and how they might set up if they're the next Rangers manager over the next few days. Oh, there
let's put my mic on. There is banging next door, folks. So I've turned my mic off because there is a bit of banging next door to me. I like the idea of either of them. I've got to admit, I wouldn't be opposed to Clement or Muscat pitching up. I think speaking to people that have worked close with them, journalists and what have you, they both play an attacking brand of football. But this is an interesting point, Stevie, and it's sort of what we touched on yesterday when you said whoever comes in has to make big decisions. Christopher Dykes says, I think both managers would be good, but my main worry is, can they get a tune out of these players? That's the big thing for me, isn't it? Because we mentioned yesterday, we've got the huge League Cup semi-final. The league is going to be extremely difficult to claw that back, but I wouldn't rule it out just yet. But who gets that instant reaction for me? That is the big thing for me at this stage, Stevie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one to comment on positively, because these players, this core group that you've seen, have let three managers down in a row. So they had one good season, Derek, where circumstances fell on our lap and, they smashed it out of the park. But they also, in that season, messed up 2 open goals for cups as well, and they've not really succeeded at any other point either. So if you want to be really blunt about it, that's maybe where we are. And that's quite cynical a way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that perhaps somebody with the quality of either of them might be able to unlock them and set the standards properly. But the issue, as I said, is that if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst can't do it, if Steven Gerrard can't do it consistently, if Michael Beale fell flat on his face doing it, then what's to say the next one won't either? And that's got to be the worry. It's certainly my worry when it comes to this group of players. I've been very spoken about where I am with them. I think they're fortunate, this group of players, that the manager stuff is going on, and that what happened last week in Cyprus in that European game is more or less been brushed over, because their performance that night was an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment, and they've got away with it to such an extent that it's not been highlighted or focused on. And the performance at the weekend, likewise, it may have won 3-0 and we were all delighted at that result, but the performance wasn't good either. And these players are not doing it when it's entirely possible and necessary to really perform. They haven't performed well at all this season, Derek, apart from patchy moments here and there. So whoever comes in, there's no magic wand to this. They can't suddenly click their fingers and this squad will be great and they'll suddenly, get players back on form and things like that. So if you want the blunt truth, Derek, of where I am, that's exactly it. So I would be prepared to give whoever came in that leeway in that time, because it goes back again to repeat what I said yesterday. There is big decisions regarding this squad. It is entirely feasible and possible that certain members of this team are just not playing well because of the overall situation with the squad, which is they're not functioning, they're not vibing.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't understand the messages coming in from the manager. All that is completely possible. So they need to be given that opportunity to perhaps to play out of it. But given what history tells us and the fact that they've already done this and they repeat the cycle, I would be very wary of building a squad around any of the established players who have continued to let this club down. Some of the summer signings won't make it either, but perhaps we'll get an upturn in form from them with somebody that maybe plays with them a wee bit better. So there's massive questions around where we go and what we do squad-wise. But as we know as well, I don't think there's a capability of saying, here's £20 million, go and rip it up and start again. So whoever comes in is going to have to try and manage this squad and bring in players that are going to be able to complement and adapt to what they really want to do as well. So it's a difficult one. What I would like, Derek, there's been a lot of talk and people have said, Stevie, who do you want as manager? Clement, Muscat, whoever else. I would just like to be entertained. I really would. I would like to go and watch the team and feel like I have a connection with them and feel like I'm entertained and feel like we were getting somewhere. At times under Van Bronckhorst, I felt that way. At times under Michael Beale last season, I felt that way. But it never really materialised or clicked into anything substantial, domestically at least, because Van Bronckhorst obviously had a great European run and he also, in credit to him, won the Scottish Cup. So I would just like to be entertained, Derek. I would like to go and watch the games and actually enjoy it and be able to say to Joshua at half-time, this is good fun. It doesn't matter if you're winning at the time. Sometimes you can't win every single game. But I don't remember the last time I said to Joshua at a game, this is fun, I'm enjoying this, I see what they're doing, I'm quite excited by what's happening, I like what this individual's doing. I can't remember the last time we sat and we said that. Certainly not this season. So from a fan viewpoint, I would really like somebody just to come in and excite us, put us on the edge of our seat. And that's all I really want. So people talk about who would you like to come in, who's your favourite and things. I don't have an outstanding favourite. I would just like that person to come in and give this club a wee bit of a shake and get us to enjoy it again. I don't really think that's unreasonable either.
Lots of comments coming in. Daniel says, you guys will love Muscat style. Speaking to the Japanese football journalist Dan Orlowitz, one thing that sort of excited me somewhat, as he says, he likes his 11 players to attack, which is something we haven't really seen at Rangers for some time now. When I asked, yes, Stevie, yeah.
Sorry, can I make a wee point on that now? Something Joshua was saying about Postecoglou and things like that, and people saying, this is just a clone of Postecoglou, and Rangers are copying that and hoping it works. Why not? Did everybody blink and miss what Postecoglou did? How good the football was to watch? I don't like saying that, but it was. They were exciting. You see the drop-off this season, and their own supporters have even talked about it. It's not the same. You watch what Postecoglou is doing down south and the football they're playing. I think they're top of the Premier League, joint with Arsenal. Why not try and copy that? Why not, if you've got somebody that's learned from him and plays a style that's attractive and attacking? I don't see that as being a negative. If it's attacking and it's going to be the best for the club, then why not?
Yeah, there was a comment came in just similar to that somewhat from, let's get the comment up here. It was, where are we now? Can't for the life of me. There it is from Jake. He says, seen a piece this morning, if Muscat didn't have the Rangers connection, would he even be considered? I think he would. I think it's more so that Ange has been a success, Stevie. I don't think if Ange had came and flopped at Celtic, I don't necessarily think that Rangers would be going out to get Kevin Muscat, to be quite honest with you. I don't think the Rangers connection is... he wasn't necessarily a hero at Rangers. He played his part in that treble-winning season all those years ago, 20 years ago now, which is absolutely crazy, just over 20 years. But I don't necessarily buy that. Joshua, in terms of players that could benefit from whatever manager comes in, Gordon Bond raises a point here. Do you think maybe with our Belgian players, Clement might be a better option? I could just think of Raskin, really. And Dessers, he knows. I'm just trying to think of any two others. Matondo's played in Belgium. Seb Jacobs is there, which is quite an intriguing one. You will be aware of Zeb, I'm sure. So Clement or Muscat, is there any players in that squad that might benefit from a certain manager coming in?
Well, I think first, just to speak about their style, as mentioned, obviously speaking to Muscat's, I think firstly, just from my point of view, either have really appealing aspects. I think Muscat's, you watch his, I've watched about 5 or 6 of his Marinos games this season, and it is fun to watch. It's attacking, it's offensive, there's a lot of off-ball movement. There's a couple of examples of that in the piece. I think the fullbacks are used in a really modern way. There's not lots of crosses from deep. There's questions, I think, as to how suited this squad is to him, even if he will adapt, and we can maybe come on to that. Speaking to, again, Ross, I think it's Aloisi, who's now the Brisbane Roar coach, speaking to him, who, as he was his assistant last year, about some of the details in his style of play were really interesting. He won't really compromise what he does on the ball, but according to Ross, he's a little bit more focused on his defensive structure. If you compare him to Postecoglou, certainly Ross says he doesn't know what Postecoglou is doing now, but certainly compared to the past, he'll use a lot of attacking patterns. But it's not like he's only going to play a 4-3-3 with wide wingers. So I think he will adapt somewhat to the players he has, but on the ball, he's roughly going to do a similar thing, which I think gives you that real identity. I think, as Stevie touches upon there, we've seen that style of play work, so there's the obvious appeal. The question for me with that, Derek, is, okay, even if he doesn't play with wingers, who's his wide forwards? Because I do think for the kind of vertical style he plays with, and the way that he has wide forwards or wingers on either side, you need players who are going to play inverted on the wrong side. And it's not an area of the pitch that Rangers have lots of depth in, is it? It's arguably the area of the pitch where Rangers have the least amount of depth out on either wing. So I think there's some questions about how suited this squad is to Muscat in the short term. It would be different for me if he was coming in at the start of summer and he had a whole pre-season and he was able to tailor that squad slightly. But again, speaking to people who have worked with him, I think he's more adaptable than people give him credit for. And I think Stevie's point is right, although there is that kind of political side, you don't want to be seen to copy stuff. You also have seen that style of football is really effective, and you've seen Muscat go and be successful in different countries. Clement, speaking to a couple of people who have worked with him, and interestingly, a couple of people who have worked against him as well, effectively said this to me, that I think Clement Rangers would hope he'd be a bit of a golden bullet, even if that doesn't exist, in the sense that he has been able to, with Club Brugge, kind of punch upwards and have some impressive performances in the Champions League. He's not reaching the quarterfinal or the semi-final or anything, but if you look at the financial disparity, the teams he's competed with, I think he's been able to really punch upwards in that degree, because he can adapt to opponents, and he will adapt to opponents slightly more. Just watching the couple of games I've watched of him so far, you'll see his team structurally do different things game upon game. But I think that the difference is, although he still has a really attacking style of play, although in that Buffalo piece that we spoke about, there was good insight into how you'll train and the automatism, like patterns of play in the final third. He's in the modern coaching school, but I think you need those, or a lot of people would think you need those tools to help break down defences and do so consistently. But I think he would be someone who comes in more, and instead of saying, this is the style I'm going to play, he'd be a little bit more adaptable to the players that Rangers have. So I could see, for example, someone like Matondo playing really well under him. The question for me with Muscat is, who plays in those wide areas? Does he have the players at fullback who can do what he wants them to do? And again, I think that will all come into the consideration that the Rangers board have to make, because it is mid-season. You don't want to have a situation where you've got a manager coming in who's really trying to dogmatically put in a style, and you've not got the players nor the time to do that. So hopefully that gives a bit of insight as to what I've found out about either of them. We're going to have kind of more coverage over the next few days as this decision rumbles on about who would suit this squad more, who would suit this style more, and I think most importantly, who would suit this circumstance more. But both come across as leaders, Derek, and I think that's important as well, because this isn't a situation for someone who doesn't have experience of not only leading various teams, but leading teams in difficult situations, which, as Stevie's already kind of suggested, is what Rangers remain in at the moment.
Yeah, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming. Lee with an interesting point here. He says, "Hi lads, for me it's got to be Muscat, his style of play, knowledge of the Asian market, which has incredible value." Is that a point there, Stevie? We've seen a team from across the city that have benefited from bringing players in from that market, players that Ange Postecoglou knew. I think there's bargains to be had over there. Is that a potential upside, do you think?
I think there's bargains to be had everywhere, Derek, if we open our eyes and have a look properly. So I don't think that's an unfair comment from Lee. I think whoever comes in is going to have their own idea of players and from their own countries and things like that. And I don't think that's an unhealthy kind of suggestion. Kevin Muscat's worked out there. He's going to know if there's one or two. And I mean, I slightly disagree with Joshua in terms of, I agree and I disagree, because what he said is completely correct. For Muscat style, we don't have marauding, fit, energetic, pacey fullbacks. We don't. Maybe Yilmaz slightly clicks into that. I'm not sure that Dujon Sterling has enough going forward. He's a very solid defender by all accounts, but I don't know if he's got enough going forward to fit that role. James Tavernier's proved a goal threat no matter what, but I'm not sure that his legs are quite capable of playing to the tempo and the style that he might want. And then winger-wise, I completely agree with Joshua. We don't have any, which, aside of Rabbi Matondo and Scott Wright, and there's still question marks over whether or not they, in the long term, I think Scott Wright we've already decided on, but perhaps Rabbi Matondo is capable. So I agree with what Josh was saying, but I also don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because, and it's maybe only my opinion, I really want this squad to get a good proper shake, and I think it's really necessary. And if somebody like Muscat comes in, he's only got 10 weeks till the window, 10, 12 weeks of whatever it is to the turn of the year. So I don't necessarily think that that's a massive black mark against him, because he then has the capability to properly view the squad in this couple of months and make those decisions, work with them, see what they're capable of and see what they're not capable of, and then make the decisions. So I'm not entirely sure that that's a bad thing. Whoever's coming in, I think, Clement or Muscat, it's more or less a blank canvas, to the point that, the fans' position on these players are that if anybody moved out the door tomorrow, there wouldn't be that much upset over anyone. So, obviously your likes of Butland and stuff like that is different, but I'm talking about the players that are under pressure and things at the moment. So with that, whoever comes in and makes those big decisions will get the backing of supporters. So I don't see, I get what Josh was saying, but as much as it could be a negative, perhaps we could look at it the other way, Joshua, and say maybe it's a positive as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think it's not so. Like, if you look at the way he uses his fullbacks or has used his fullbacks more recently in Japan, it's not. I went in with this preconception that his fullbacks will come inside the pitch and they'll be the extra midfielders and quite a classic inverted fullback style. But I think there's a couple of examples in the piece of how he uses actually two deep midfielders to try and invite pressure, and it's a really interesting style of play to watch. I'd love to watch that style of play more regularly, where they're trying to invite the opposition onto them and then play into the space ahead of the defence or behind the defence. They've got four players high and wide. It's often like a 4-2-4 in possession, and what the fullbacks are doing is they're trying to, and I think this is a key point, it's not so much that the fullbacks are always overlapping or the fullbacks are always playing the final ball into the box, and sometimes they are, but it's more that they're contributing to the attack in really effective ways. So they're making off-ball runs to free up the wingers. They're moving into central positions that are hard to pick up, and moving into those central positions, especially in the opposition half. And again, going back to what the Muscat's assistant from last season told me, he basically just said, well, if you're attacking a team and your fullback moves into the number 10 position, who picks up that player? And I think this is why fullbacks are so important. They're so interesting now in modern football. You see people like Arteta and look at the Arsenal game at the weekend, where it was a fullback's forward run from left back that kind of breaks the defensive structure that Manchester City were using. And I think Muscat is very much, he feels quite at the forefront. He's been exposed to a lot of probably methodology from within the City Football Group. I think he would come in and he'd implement a style of play that is really effective against deep defences. Yeah, he's maybe going to face a more pressure higher up the pitch in Japan, but pressure, teams always going to pressurise you at some point, whether they're inside the box and they're pressurising you at the edge of it, or it's higher up in your half. I think it's how you go about creating space and then creating chances from within that. So I think he could move around and adapt with the fullbacks. I think there's certain players. I don't think you're going to see Borna Barisic sitting wide on the left and playing in crosses under Muscat, for example. I could see under Clement an example where he really gets the best out of Matondo. I tweeted this out the other day that his last game as Club Brugge manager was a derby defeat against Cercle Bruges, and Matondo's the best player in the park there. And yeah, so he's had first-hand exposure to how effective he can be, and obviously Matondos's best football consistently has come in Belgium. And I think before he got injured, you were starting to see, although that still needs to translate into starting matches, he was starting to have a real consistent impact, especially compared to last season. So I agree with Stevie. It needs a shake-up. It needs something new. I think it needs clarity and a real kind of strongest 11 that it will obviously be changed because of injuries and the heavy game schedule. But there's a real idea of what Rangers' strongest starting 11 is. And I think it's important that whoever comes in gets as much of next week as possible, because there's big games coming up. There's a League Cup coming up. And as much as we're speaking in what is a bad situation at the moment, if this I'm sure a new manager will also look at it and say, well, if it's in a low position, that's a perfect opportunity to try and build momentum and try and lift the mood as well. Do you know, if you come in and you have a good couple of games in Europe, if you win the League Cup, if you get some consistency in the league working into the Old Firm towards Christmas time, you can change the mood altogether. So although it's a bit of a crisis moment at the moment, there has been, I think that also presents opportunity for a manager to come in and really, I guess, make this situation their own and make it better.
Yeah. Just off the back of that as well, Ian Edwards, and a few comments coming in incidentally regarding this. It's just over a week until Hibs at Easter Road. I'm getting the feeling Stephen Davis will be in charge for this game. And Callum as well with the point. I thought a new manager would be close now. The longer we wait, the slower the turnaround will be. I think there'll be a new manager in place for that game, Stevie. As we touched on at the top of the programme, this week has been designated to interviewing those candidates again and making a decision, I'm sure, by the end of the week. I would be amazed if Stephen Davis was in charge for Hibs.
Yeah, not really wanting to say for definite that he won't be, because how many times have I sat here and been so I really don't see it. In fact, I would be amazed if Rangers don't know their new manager and it hasn't been announced by the close of play or the weekend.
Yeah.
More forcefully within the next 48 hours, I would expect us to know where we're going and who's made that choice. I'm basically waiting on that news breaking from, whoever it is, it's going to break that news. So I don't see Stephen Davis being in charge for that game at all. So I'm not concerned that would be. I wouldn't be concerned if Stephen Davis was in charge. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm not feeling that it's a possibility. So I'm expecting news, and my hunch is that over the next couple of days we'll find out exactly where we're going.
Yeah, a few comments coming in. Rangers, of course, at home to Hibs on Saturday, the 21st of October. Just before we wrap up, Joshua, Alex Lowry was in the press yesterday, of course, named in the Scotland under-21 side. He was asked a couple of interesting questions. Firstly, on his loan to Hearts and about a potential recall in January. He said, it's not in my mind. My main aim is to perform for Hearts right now. Whatever happens in January happens. I couldn't tell you who the next manager is going to be, so it's nothing to do with me. My focus is on impressing Stephen Naismith, and if he's playing me, then I'll hopefully keep getting picked for the 21s. That's all I can control, my own form, so I just have to do my best and see what happens. And he says, it's a big season for me. This has been my main breakthrough season, because although I made my debut 2 seasons ago, last season I was constantly injured and a few other things happened. This season I've started afresh and hopefully I can really get going. Going to Hearts has given me something completely different. I'd been in the enclosed walls of Rangers, so I knew what pressure was like. But coming to Hearts, it has been a case of wow, because it's so pressurised there too. I have loved every minute of it so far. Thought that was interesting. He was also asked about his perception to him and being viewed as arrogant. And he said, I get that sometimes. One of my coaches at Rangers, Brian Gilmore, he used to always be on to me about perception, the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I conduct myself around the place. That's always been something that I've put first. I've always tried to make sure I conduct myself properly and speak to people the way I would want them to speak to me. So I thought it was quite interesting, Alex speaking there. He sort of came to the fore in recent weeks. Joshua started off with that fantastic finish when he came off the bench to fire Hearts into the semi-final.
Yeah.
Won't play against Rangers, incidentally, folks, in case any of you are worried about that. But it's good to see him now starting to get a real opportunity at Hearts, and that may be a decision for the new manager come January.
Yeah, but I think what this is showing you is that he needs to play football. He needs to be in a situation where he's maybe closer to a starting spot than he was at Rangers. And listen, I think that Lowry, you need it's a bit like Todd Cantwell. I think you need real confidence in your ability to be that type of player who takes ownership, who does things, who creates, who takes risks, who isn't just playing safe passes all the time. So I like that. It'd be boring if all footballers were all the same, wouldn't it? He's obviously such a talented individual. I've caught bits of his time at Hearts so far. We're going to hopefully have a more detailed look at some point when everything calms down, if it ever does. But it's been good to see him. I think his cross for the goal up at Ross County was fantastic. It was a kind of deep cross, but hopefully, from my point of view, he gets this whole season at Hearts where he becomes a key player for them by the ends of it. I don't think it's been a question of quality. I think it's just been a question of doing it consistently, maturing, and that comes, I guess, from quite often from a loan spell. So, yeah, good to see him doing well. And the finish against Kilmarnock was just it's just top class, because I think that shows his ability to not just kind of, I guess, latch on at that shot, but take his time, pick it out, find the corner, and as you say, won't be playing at Hampden. But I'm sure from the start he's had at Hearts, it felt like a bit of a crossroads at his time at Rangers. You just hope, and I'm pretty confident that it will be a springboard for next season, him coming back and playing a big role at Ibrox.
Can I just say, Derek?
Yeah.
I spoke about this online as well. I've said it from Four Lads, that a lot of people have said stuff about Alex. Alex is a young boy. He lost his mum. He's went through a really hell of a time of it. Every time I've spoken to Alex, he will purposely come out of his way to come and speak to you, make sure you're all right. Stevie, how are you? Blah, 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 chat away. The nicest young lad. And I've seen people throw stuff about online that I've never met him and never known him, and question what he's really like. And it's not true in the slightest. So I've said that before, and I think it's worth saying that people get reputations on things that may not or may have happened in the training field, and rumours start going about what type of person people is. As I said, I've had many dealings with Alex. I've interviewed him a few times. I've spoke to him. And when I see him up in the training ground, he is nothing but pleasant. He'll actually come out of his way to go and see how you are, see how things are going, what's happening, how's the kids, right? So, I don't see what people have said about Alex to be remotely true. I don't have the insight that some might have into training ground stuff, but people I've spoke to, I don't think that's true. So this reputation that Alex might have, that he's this and he's that, I don't quite see it. And as people have said, at 18, 19, 20, with that talent he possesses, who isn't going to be a wee bit arrogant, who isn't going to have that wee bit of swagger and that belief?
Yeah,
that sometimes can be a positive thing, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be translated into Alex is this type of person or that type of person, because I really don't believe he is. So I think that's worth saying. I've not had any bad experiences with Alex Lowry over attitude, how he's spoken to us, how he's behaved. He's been nothing but friendly and had a laugh with us. So I just thought that was worth saying. There's a lot being said about Alex Lowry. I've said it before online, and I think it's worth pointing out again that I don't believe that these stories about him and his apparent attitude and arrogance and things like that are remotely true. If he's got that on the pitch, I don't think that's a bad thing. But certainly off the pitch, it's not the Alex Lowry I know.
Yeah, it's good to see him getting an opportunity at Hearts. I hope he does well there. But part of me thinks that he walks into that Rangers team right now. I would have him over Sam Lammers any day of the week, Joshua.
I don't think it's been I don't think it's a quality thing with Lowry. I think it's just more he's young and simultaneously agree with what Stevie's saying, but sometimes it takes young players time to adapt to transitioning into, I guess, becoming a first team regular all the time. I think one thing that maybe he's had to develop is work off the ball at points. Different coaches have I guess, spoken consistently highly of his capabilities, but that's just natural. What young player comes into a team and doesn't have to pick things up, or what player at 19, 20 is the finished product? So, I guess reiterate what Stevie says. I think it's great to see him playing. He's obviously had a really difficult time, and I think when you watch, he's a player that he's Billy Campbell. He's a player that I think you just enjoy watching football because he's a pure footballer. He tries things on instinct. He's probably not someone who's going to rigidly ever stick to a system, he's always going to have that kind of individualism about him, and I really like that. And I think the best thing for him, get the whole season at Hearts, play in a pressurised environment, play at a big club, and come back next season and be ready to really make a position his own at Rangers. Because I totally agree, if you're talking about domestic football, I think he has the quality now. But I think a season at Hearts, I think that'll benefit him. It'll help him mature on the pitch, and then help him really make that impact next season at Ibrox.
Interesting stuff. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Huge thanks to Stevie and to Joshua. Just a bit of admin before we wrap up. First of all, we've got our Rangers Review WhatsApp group. So many of you have joined up. If you want to stay up to date with all the latest news coming out of Ibrox, there's pieces on there from Chris, Joshua, myself, exclusive videos and links to breaking news as well. Then make sure you sign up. I'll stick the link in the description box below, and you can see the ticker below as well if you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube. We've got 2 offers on the website at this moment in time. You can take advantage of the yearly subscription, which is just £18, or you can take advantage of the 4-month option, which is just £4, £2.99 per month. Thereafter, if you head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe, and you'll find all the details to sign up there. Right, huge thanks to everyone as ever. We will be back tomorrow. I was going to say as we look ahead to the game at the weekend, but there is no Rangers game. Maybe we'll have some more managerial news. Who knows? But thanks everyone, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.